Good evening. I'd like to call the school committee meeting for Monday, November 7th, 2022 to order. Would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you have any cell phones, pagers, beepers, electronic devices, if you could kindly silence them or shut them off, we'd greatly appreciate it. Excuse me. Would like to let you know that this meeting is being taped for future display by DCTV and our own Dartmouth High School TV media. It's shown on Channel 9 and 18 throughout the week, different times. It's also being live streamed on youtube.com/DHTSTV Media. So, okay. At this point, can you do a roll call? Roll call, Dr. Gifford, please.
John Nunes.
Yep.
Chris Oliver.
Here.
Dr. Jenkins. Here. Kathleen Amaral. Here. Mary Waite.
Here.
Thank you. Our illustrious, wonderful secretary is a little under the weather, and we wish her speedy recovery. At this point in time, we've allotted 10 minutes on the agenda for public comment. I will ask that you come to the microphone and state your name, or anyone who has any comments to make that are the result and on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Lauren Beliveau. I am the DEA Vice President of Teaching Assistants. I'm joined today by Roseanne Amaral. She's a teaching assistant in the PALS 3 to 5 program at Quinn Elementary. I'm going to talk about what a living wage is, the fact that Dartmouth teaching assistants do not earn a living wage in our town, and then Rose is going to take it over and talk about the day in the life of a special education teaching assistant. A living wage. The definition of a living wage is the minimum income necessary for an employee to meet their basic needs. Their basic needs. A living wage in Bristol County, according to the MIT calculator, is $29,827 per year. Dartmouth teaching assistants, we will soon be known as Education Support Professionals, or ESPs. Their salary range is between $19,000 and $26,000, roughly. Meaning the starting salary for a Dartmouth TA is $10,000 a year below a living wage. The top step, after we've been working all these years, you reach top step, we're still $3,000 below a living wage. Honestly, this salary range is absurd. We are educators. We are not babysitters. We support our students. And what could be more important to our district than the support and the success and the growth of our students? Now, we're all in public education, and we watch and we read the news. There is a wave moving across the state. Districts are realizing how valuable the role we play in the education of our students. They're opening their eyes, and they're coming through with significant increases in salaries. A few examples: Somerville, they just signed an agreement. Their TAs are starting at $35,000 a year. Dartmouth, as I mentioned, is $19,000. Malden, starting at $32,000 a year. Dartmouth, $19,000. Martha's Vineyard, $31,000 a year. Northampton, that's a small Western Mass town. They have a lower living wage than us. They are making $23,000 a year to start. Now, you may say, well, that's Boston, or that's not the same kind of demographics that we have. So I crunched some numbers, and I'll go through these towns again. Somerville, they pay 87% of their living wage in their county. They pay 87% of the living wage to their teaching assistants. Malden pays 82% of their living wage. Martha's Vineyard, 91% of their living wage. And Northampton, that small little western town, 82% of the living wage. I am embarrassed to say that Dartmouth is at 65% of our living wage. Now, close to home, New Bedford, there's the ESPs or TAs or whatever you'd like to call them, paraprofessionals, are fighting for a starting salary of $26,000. That would be 87% of the living wage in New Bedford. Brockton, fighting for a starting wage of $31,800 per year, or 84% of a living wage. Higher salaries are necessary to attract and retain quality ESPs. It has been so difficult in our schools to hire ESPs because no one wants to work for peanuts. It was particularly evident during the summer, where the district was forced to fill ESP positions with outsiders through agencies or postings on Indeed, and actually in some cases paying more than to our own TAs, because our own TAs wouldn't work in our district because they weren't being paid enough. They went out and got other jobs over the summer that made more money. Just in the last few months, we've lost 4 TAs, 3 of which were highly experienced. 1 left to be a food server at a local restaurant. 1 left to be a nanny. 1 left to go to Fairhaven, where she's making $4 more an hour. And 1 looked at the job, stayed 3 weeks, and went, forget this isn't enough money, and she quit.
Can I ask you to wrap up, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
All done. So what I'm saying is the time is now. Please, please support a living wage for Dartmouth teaching assistants. Thank you.
Hi, Roseanne Amaral here. I'm here representing my special ed teacher assistant coworkers. We do this job because we love the children we work with. The rewards of watching the student grow and make progress is very heartwarming. I've been working in this position for almost 10 years. While it is rewarding at times, it is equally emotionally and physically exhausting. In order to work in special ed, you have to be CPI certified. So this certification requires a yearly refresher training. With this comes significant responsibility. We are required to settle many different crises that may arise with our students. On a daily basis, we could be getting hit, bit, kicked, or verbally abused by students. The training we receive gives us the know-how to block physical aggression and to de-escalate situations, but it doesn't always work. In addition to the CPI certification, many of us have to implement behavior support plans and take data, which is very time-consuming. Taking data is also one of the responsibilities of an ABA, which is an applied behavior analyst. So we might be doing some of those responsibilities. If a typical student in a regular ed classroom would hit or verbally abuse a teacher, he or she would be sent to the office and get a consequence. In our position, this happens to one or more of us daily. We do understand this is a delicate population we are working with, but this responsibility should come with fair compensation. As it stands now, we're not even close to a living wage, as Lauren had stated. Recently, a staff member was sent to the hospital for a tetanus shot after getting bit. Many of us have gone home with bruises, have had our hair pulled, and disrespected time after time. There should absolutely be a distinction between regular ed and special ed. I mean no disrespect to the regular ed TAs, and honestly feel most of them would agree with this. I say this because whenever a regular ed teacher assistant position becomes available, usually a special ed TA will apply for that position. It's because, as I said earlier, it does take an emotional and physical toll on us. So without us, it would be nearly impossible for this population to be successful in a public school setting. We are supporting these students emotionally, academically, and socially. With this being said, on behalf of all of us in special education, please give us the respect that we deserve, the respect that we give our students regardless of what happens on a daily basis. Please grant us the monetary increase that we need to live. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynn Turner. I'm here to speak on a different topic on the agenda, and it's about our superintendent search. First of all, I just want to thank Bonnie Gifford for her time serving our community and our schools. I feel like you've done a wonderful job standing up for our children in so many instances that you've had to face in your time here. I want to thank you for being as fair as you possibly can with all of our community, for being transparent as to what and why you're doing things. And I feel like you've valued parent voices. Whenever I have written letters to you, you've given such a respectful response, and I very much appreciate your transparency and communication with the public. I also appreciate that you supported the will of the people so graciously with the logo as well, and the many requests to remove those masks off the kids. I feel like as soon as you were able to jump on that, you did, and I really appreciate that. I know that the committee is looking at the new superintendent search, so just some thoughts that I have on the committee to search for a new superintendent. I would love for you to try to have a good picture of Dartmouth and all of the kids that we serve in that search. I hope that it doesn't look like just like a certain side of politics looking for a certain person to lay out curriculum that is promoting only one doctrine. And I would love for you to consider having a very balanced approach in the way that you replace our superintendent. So I would ask that you consider that. I appreciate your time. And if there is politics in schools, I actually don't like politics that much in our schools. I think we need to let our kids be kids. But when there is, I hope that it is fair and balanced and all views are looked at and that all sides are represented without bias. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jeff Reed. I'm the lead teacher of the high school social studies department. And I was lucky enough to student teach here over 20 years ago. And I was excited. As a Westport kid, Dartmouth was the place to be. Best sports, the band, all the electives. And after that, I said, I definitely want to teach here. And for the past 20 years, I've loved teaching here. The kids are great. The people I work with, fantastic. The biggest drawback, though, is the compensation. For the past 10 years as a lead teacher, my stipend has not increased. As an athletic coach for about 10 years, my stipend has not increased. But the biggest thing is the health insurance. Right now, I'm currently paying $130 a week for the individual basic HMO plan. I was shocked to find out that some family plans, $324 a week. Despite this, I'm not going anywhere. I love this place. I'm going to finish off my career here. I'm not going anywhere. But it's outrageous to see how out of whack our health insurance is compared to other local schools. I looked up New Bedford's better, Fall River's better, Fairhaven, Berkeley, Swansea, Somerset, and if you look at the schools in our DART, every single one is better than Dartmouth. The only local place I found, ironically, that was worse than us was Westport. Just this past September, as teachers are bringing in their stuff, I'm seeing a colleague taking all their stuff out. I said, why? I got a better job at New Bedford Voc. This was a Dartmouth graduate, somebody who loved teaching here, but they said, I have a family, and they're paying nearly $15,000 more to go down the street. What's even more alarming is that when we had our search for a high school principal, the pool was so small, we couldn't find enough qualified candidates. Thank God Mr. Shea applied for the job and we have a quality high school principal, because the pools just aren't coming in. And in my 20 years, I've served on many committees to look for new people and be part of the interviewing committee. And we've said, this would be a great person for social studies, let's hire them. When they come to sign the paperwork and they hear about the health insurance, they say, I'm sorry, I need to go elsewhere. As much as we have a lot of great things to offer, for some people, they need to have enough money to take care of their family, and oftentimes they can't provide it when they make thousands and thousands of dollars more in another community just based off of health insurance. From what I've been told, this problem has gone on for decades. And I scratch my head because I really do think we have great leaders in this community. I just can't figure out how every other local community can figure out a way to better compensate their teachers, and we can't. We're not asking to be on the same exact equal split that they are, but at least just inching in that direction is all we ask. So we hope that you can really, really work on that for us. Thank you.
This will be the last one because we'll have exhausted our 10 minutes of public comment.
Good evening. My name is Kelly Stoll, and I'm the lead nurse here in Dartmouth Public Schools, and I'm standing with Rachel, one of my Dartmouth Public School nurses at DeMello. I have had the pleasure of working with the most dedicated, compassionate, hardworking nurses I have ever worked with in my career. School nursing has a unique role of bridging the gap between home and school so we can assure that our students are healthy to be educated. We have endured the most challenging 2 years of our careers, navigating through a pandemic as the district's frontline heroes. We continue to show up not only for our students, but our staff as well, with integrity and perseverance. We care deeply about our students and would continue not only through the academic school year, but also through the summer if we were compensated at our hourly rate. Our worth, time, and commitment shouldn't be valued less just because it's the summer. Consistency of care is a big part of school nursing, and it isn't achieved when an agency nurse comes in or someone from the outside the district comes in to care for our students. Not to mention that they're compensated at a much higher rate if it was the one of district's very own nurses were to be at summer school. This is a disservice to our students and their families, and it is disheartening that we, your district nurses, are replaceable. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the regular session minutes and executive session of October 17th. We'll take the regular session minutes first.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Oliver.
Second.
Second, Dr. Jenkins. On the motion, any discussion? Chair hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. On the executive session minutes of the same date,
I'll move with the usual stipulation that they be held until the matters for which they are intended are complete.
hey, very good.
You know.
I'm impressed. Good job.
Second.
Second by, moved by Ms. Waite, second by Dr. Jenkins. On the motion, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. You gonna handle this one?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Okay, so I guess we have our two directors that are going to introduce the school improvement plans for this evening. So as you know, we have our elementary folks that are here, and Ross and Katie are going to start us off by talking about the overview of the district.
Good evening, and I just want to thank Dr. Gifford and members of the committee for the opportunity to present the district's strategic plan for the 2022-2023 school year, as well as some of our school improvement plans. Maybe not. There we go.
So our journey actually dates back to 2016, when through a comprehensive process involving DPS staff, parents, and community members, a 3-year plan was developed using 3 pillars to anchor our work. Strategic objectives and initiatives were developed in the areas of teaching and learning, access and equity, and community engagement. The district leadership team reviewed and revised this plan during the summer retreat in 2018 and continued our strategic work during years 2 and 3 of the plan.
And so we had started work together back in 2020 in terms of thinking about the next iteration of our district strategic plan. In fact, we met, it was March 11th, 2020, and we remember it well because we met at Quinn Community School, and then 2 days later, the pandemic kicked in and schools were shuttered, and we have never been the same since. So we were meeting this summer and thinking about where do we go from here, and we really thought it important to take this year to think deeply, do some deep reflective work, to engage stakeholders in the community as partners in developing a strategic vision and a strategic plan that will carry Dartmouth Public Schools for the next 3 to 5 years. And so toward that end, we asked that our schools follow kind of the same structure that we had used last year in terms of building a plan around 3 big pillars, being sense of belonging, grade appropriate instruction with just-in-time scaffolds, and monitoring for understanding.
You may remember these tenets as they were first introduced to us in the acceleration roadmap that was developed by the Department of Ed coming out of the pandemic last year. So we'll first talk a little bit about the sense of belonging. Our work this year has led us to form a district strategic planning team, and that team will be looking at all 3 pillars of our district plan. Specific to the sense of belonging, one of the things that we have done is join forces with LearnLaunch. I know it's a name that you've heard before. They have created a sense of belonging network, and we are doing some work facilitated by them, looking at our schools, looking at how we can foster that sense of belonging. We did have Tori Todd from LearnLaunch who came down and did a walkthrough with us in 3 of our 6 buildings, and our team works with her. Ross and I meet with her monthly to plan some strategic initiatives around fostering a sense of belonging for all kids and all staff of Dartmouth Public Schools.
Additionally, the district strategic planning team that we put together has representation from every school, both teachers and administrators serving on the district strategic plan so that we can work collaboratively. And one of the focuses is really around building district-wide understanding and district-wide vision so that we have clear communication and we're all moving towards one common goal and one common mission. And again, being informed by stakeholders in the community, one area of focus under the sense of belonging is really taking the time this year to get back to making sure our schools are safe and healthy. And so we put in place some common measures that each building has been asked to kind of update throughout the year with respect to what safety steps they're taking in their buildings, what that looks like developmentally, pre-K up through grade 12.
As we move forward to grade appropriate instruction, one of our goals is to enhance our collective understanding of what high quality instruction looks like and come to you're going to hear a common theme in what we're talking about, and that's that common understanding and making sure that we're communicating and having everyone sort of on the same page when we're moving forward so that everyone is rowing in that same direction. To that end, one of the things that we have done with our Project Time folks and we are currently doing with our district administrators is a book talk around Teach Like a Champion. If you know that book, it's in its 3rd iteration, and it has techniques around classroom techniques that are really just grounded in good instruction. The goal with that is when we're providing feedback, we want to be able to provide consistent feedback so that our kids ultimately, right, well, all we do is about our kids. And we were saying, how great would it be that if the techniques that we're using are in preschool when they're 3 years old and replicated in the elementary level and the middle school and the high school. So when we're giving feedback about core instruction, making sure that those instructional techniques are consistent throughout.
We're also looking to leverage that as a way to strengthen feedback that administrators are providing to our educators. And so in addition to our book study, we also are using a tool called Optic, which is a online database that has model lessons, real lessons taught in Massachusetts schools, aligned to the Mass Curriculum Frameworks and aligned to the educator evaluation instrument, so that we can calibrate as an administrative team our look-fors when we go into a classroom. So that with the goal, again, being to provide consistent feedback from building to building, from administrator to administrator, with the idea of improving practice. One of the other most important pieces of work that we're going to do this year, and I'm so excited about, is to develop the Dartmouth Public Schools vision of a learner. We're partnering with Envision Learning. In fact, we had a meeting today, a planning meeting today with Dr. Gifford and Mrs. Paveo and Mrs. Jodwin to just kind of set the dates and establish that with Envision Learning. But really that vision of a learner, again, will be developmentally appropriate. So what does a learner look like at pre-K in Dartmouth Public Schools? What does it look like in grade 5, in grade 8, as a senior about to graduate? And that vision of a learner ultimately will serve as a North Star for all of the work we do in the next 3 to 5 years. That's really the idea and the cornerstone behind our next the next iteration of our strategic plan. When we say every learner in Dartmouth Public Schools should be able to do X, how do we make sure that comes alive? And so we're really excited to be doing that work this year as well. And again, that will involve a great amount of input from stakeholders in the community, from parents, from students, from teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals. Everyone who has a hand in the success of Dartmouth Public Schools will have an opportunity to contribute input into the development of that vision of a learner, and it will be publicized and feedback collected before it is hopefully finalized by the end of this school year, is the goal there.
And finally, we're talking about monitoring understanding. And so at the district level, one of the things that Ross and I are spearheading is reestablishing data teams to help develop common district-wide protocols. Our goal in pulling this team back together is to establish some consistency around this is the data we look at, this is why we look at it, and this is the protocols that we use when we're analyzing it. We also want to assure that our assessment calendar is outlining essential assessments throughout the year to guide our instruction, to track student growth, analyze the efficacy of our interventions, and looking at our at-risk students to make sure that they are making the gains that they need to. And this includes assuring that we are meeting requirements from the state, including the dyslexia guidelines that require us to screen all students in K-3.
And then the final piece is we just want to really make sure that the data we're collecting, the data, the learning data that we're looking at, really has a tight alignment with ultimately the vision of a learner that is created this year. And
so that's enough from us.
Yes.
So the real kind of stars of the show tonight are going to be our 4 elementaries, our 4 littlest learner communities, who are going to talk to you a little bit about what they're doing in their individual buildings. And we'll start with Dr. Dale.
Oh, okay, great. Good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. This says middle school. Let's see here. I got nothing.
Is it just the arrow?
I know down button. That's not me.
Oh, hold on. I don't know, Mr. Galashaw. No, it's not. That's not right, actually. No,
No.
it's like I don't know what happened to the Cushman School.
And I don't see any elementary schools there.
what you're talking, I'll fix this. I'll start talking.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and get started. I want to say thank you to Katie and Ross for addressing pre-K when they talk about district initiatives, saying pre-K to grade 12. Often districts forget about their pre-K, so I was really happy to hear them consistently say pre-K to grade 12. So I wanted to start with just giving you a brief highlight about the progress that was made on last year's plans. And under sense of belonging, still living under the COVID guidelines, we wanted to have our students feel like they belonged at Cushman and have our parents feel that they belonged. So we had to continue to have that communication with them and the staff. We did electronic communications. We still had our community meetings, but those were done virtually. And it was important for me to make sure that the parents saw what was happening inside the school. So I did that through our weekly communication. Are we there? Okay, perfect. Okay, and then under grade appropriate instruction, we started with a shared reading interactive writing process that was done in preschool with our literacy coach, Lori O'Neill. We started our Bridges math implementation at both pre-K and kindergarten, and our math coach, Jen Fitton, helped us with that. And we had to really address the unique needs of students with disabilities that were coming in as 3-year-olds have a continual enrollment throughout the year. And coming in after COVID presented itself with plenty of new challenges for us. Under monitoring understanding, we had to really work closely with our EI partners in expediting the process because there was a need for expediting things because of the reduction in personnel and the EI partners had. Oftentimes we would get referrals and the student was getting ready to turn 3 right then and there instead of the normal advance notice that we had. We continue to use the screening data in pre-K and kindergarten to help us guide our instruction. And we had to really work closely with our students, and our outreach social worker last year worked with executive functioning skills, helping children learn how to play again, learn how to play with others, and learn how to follow routines and structures. So that's some of what was last year's progress. And this year, what some of our goals are is to maximize that outreach to support families through that transition process in preschool. It's called the Transition Planning Conference, the TPC conferences. And now instead of meeting families and introducing them to Dartmouth Public Schools via Zoom, I'm actually going back out into the homes and sitting with the families and playing with the children in their homes. We're increasing opportunities for our in-person meetings and events and volunteer opportunities. We now have our volunteers coming back in, helping our children walk over to the library. We use the community library because we do not have a library at Cushman. We do have a big classroom play tomorrow and expecting a lot of parents to turn out. That will be one of the first times we're having parents back in for classroom events. And we're continuing to increase the visual communications from various stakeholders. I think it's important for our families to hear from other people than just me in our weekly correspondence. So we try to highlight from the nurse and the new staff that join us, such as our new outreach social worker, Alicia Fricks. So I'm trying to increase communications from other people. Under grade appropriate instruction, we continued with that shared reading, and we received a lot of resources over the summer for preschool. With regards to math, not only do we continue our Bridges implementation, but we've really got back to looking at ST math and increasing the number of minutes that our students in kindergarten are working towards targets. And we're improving our timelines of the enrollment of 3-year-olds who do qualify for specialized services. I made it my goal, my own personal goal, evaluation goal, to meet 100% of the students to make sure that they are starting on the 3rd birthday. Under monitoring for understanding, we're developing pre-K team goals. They've developed them themselves, focused on the growth of our pre-K students going on to kindergarten, looking at the PALS data, making sure that they are ready for kindergarten. We've designed prescriptive lessons to support the students in kindergarten who were seeing the need extra help, and we're doing that through our reading specialists and our special education teacher. And our special education teams are working together to assist in clearly articulated transitions, whether it be coming in from EI or it's just coming into the school and transitioning into a classroom, or preparing to transition to kindergarten next year or a special program. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we are still just getting back to normal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Questions?
I just want to say that, again, it's so evident how you are really working to try to bridge those gaps for these students who came in. I mean, there certainly was a lot of loss with socialization. I think we're all aware of that. And I just love the fact as we're talking about the sense of belonging. I've been a participant in the Learn Launch workshops that I know, and I've took part in those just the past couple weeks. And again, like getting into the homes is certainly like a really important part of that. So seeing those families and starting there, it's a great start for families to feel that sense of community. So I really appreciate that.
I agree. Thank you. Okay,
Anyone
thank
else?
you. Oh,
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
No, I think I'll just comment at the end.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Mellows next.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank you. DeMello, his career.
Hi. Mr. Hill and I would like to thank you all for having us here at School Committee tonight to talk about where we've been and where we're going at DeMello School. Starting with our progress and highlights from last year's SIP. We all know what last year was about. Much of it across the district was spent contact tracing and dealing with student illnesses and mitigating, staff issues. And as a team, our school admin and our outreach social worker and nurse were able to connect with and support families experiencing various hardships that impacted student attendance and learning last year. So during this time, we made an effort to be present in classrooms throughout the building. It was a goal every week for Mrs. Paveo and I to get into every classroom and try to connect with the students and the teachers, be it from 3 or 6 feet away with masks on. That was a priority. And we also worked really hard to find ways of upholding the traditions that we held dear at DeMello School, such as our Student of the Month assemblies, albeit they used to be in person last year. We made them all virtual. We also continue to provide our students across the building with opportunities to see themselves and learn about others through our diversity lending library that we are still maintaining and through multicultural learning materials across classrooms and grade levels. Moving on to grade appropriate instruction. Throughout last year, our grade level teams continued to use calming planning time and after school meetings to work on reviewing student work and data to inform instructions. We had Bridges full steam ahead. At DeMello last year, all of our students jumped on board and we had a really productive year with that program. We're continuing on this year, but that was a big focus. Moving on to monitor understanding. As an admin team, Mrs. Paveo and I devoted as much time as possible to observing our newest teachers, supporting our newest teachers who were awfully brave to jump into the fray during a pandemic, providing them with targeted specific feedback aimed at strengthening student engagement and academic rigor, and we continue to do that now on a broader spectrum. That is our progress from last year. Moving into this year, I'm going to let Mr. Hill start off with sense of belonging.
All right. And again, first year in Dartmouth and really enjoying my time at DeMello and, excited to where we're headed to. So under sense of belonging, some of the things that we're working on is reestablishing our monthly PBIS community meetings, focusing on development, inclusion, and unity. We have implemented vertical STEM teams, devoting to critical thinking skills while fostering skills such as teamwork, creativity, adaptability, and dependability. Yeah.
And our focus is truly on back to normal. We've had such a great start to this school year, and I attribute much of that to the fact that people feel like even though COVID's still out there, we've stepped kind of out of that COVID haze and we don't have masks on and we're not worrying about distancing and we're all eating at tables in the cafeteria and we can have all of our in-person celebrations together. So we are back to normal and we are doing it all. We have in-person gatherings. We had 2 Student of the Month assemblies with families in the building today. We've planned our first family literacy night for first grade coming up in a couple of weeks. We have Fall Fest being hosted by the PTO for Cushman and DeMello the weekend of the 19th. We're looking forward to authors, visits, cultural events during the school year. You name it, we are back to it. We're also working hard on improving communication with our families at DeMello. So starting this fall, the first week of school, we send out a newsletter to kind of bring everyone up to speed on what's gone on in the building for the past week. We send pictures of people's kids we attach to the newsletters, and then anything else that we need to let the community know about, and those have been really well received. We'll move on back to Mr. Hill.
Okay. So for grade appropriate instruction, we're focusing on strengthening our Tier 1 instruction through providing regular opportunities for extensive grade level planning, horizontal and vertical team learning walks to identify and observe best practices, and also embedded opportunities for academic discourse and critical thinking. And in addition to strengthening our Tier 1, it's also bridging what's happening within our Tier 2 and Tier 3 into the classroom. So we're utilizing our ELA and math coaches to support and guide special education teachers effectively, and also utilizing our reading and math specialists to connect to that Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction back into the classroom.
And finally, under monitoring understanding, this year, a big priority for us is to provide our grade level teams and interventionists with regular opportunities to dig deep into data and plan instruction with our individual students' needs in mind. Our teachers are focused on using regular formative assessments to gauge their students' understanding every day, driving daily instruction, and fluidly grouping their students accordingly. We also will be providing teachers with some additional PD centered on integrating checks for understanding throughout their lessons, as well as providing students with clear, specific feedback. So our plate is full, we're ready to go, and the energy's good, so that's where we're at right now. Does anyone have any questions for DeMello School?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, easy,
Until the
thank
end.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Rick. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Porter and Mrs. McHenry.
Good evening. Mrs. McHenry and I are going to talk about Potter Past and Potter Present as it relates to our student improvement plan. So if I can do this correctly, there we go. So I'm going to look back at our highlights from last year. So under sense of belonging, if you're going to have students be included, it's important that students be there. And I think the challenge of the pandemic was having students in school. So one of the things we decided to do last year, because we were very concerned about our attendance the year before, was to develop a team of administrators, social workers, the school nurse, and the school psychologist to reach out to families who were struggling with the attendance. And clearly there were times when kids had to stay home, but there were other times where we really needed to let families know that it's important that they also be in school, either be in school physically or virtually. So we each took families that were struggling with their attendance and worked with them to make the best plan possible. And we were pleased to see that we did see a difference in our attendance last year. Under grade appropriate instruction, if you're going to have grade appropriate instruction, then you need to have the schedules and the structures in place to make sure that happens. So previously, before the pandemic, scheduling at the elementary level can be a bit of a nightmare when you're trying to schedule phys ed, art, and music, especially when you're sharing specialist teachers throughout the district. But one of the things we noticed before is that sometimes, for example, in an ELA block, the block may start for 10 or 15 minutes, and then the kids have to stop what they're doing and then go to phys ed. So one of the things Mrs. McHenry and I worked on with teams of teachers is how can we reschedule things so that ELA block can be 45, 60, 90 minutes long without that interruption daily. It did require some creative scheduling. It required us to go, for example, to do a recess then lunch schedule. It required us to have the lunches maybe at a little different time. It required us for things that we can't control, like second step at library, to see when it makes more sense to do that, because we felt for grade level appropriate instruction to happen, you need to have those uninterrupted blocks of time. We also worked with teachers to designate when it would be purposeful to have the Tier 2 and Tier 3 instructions. And in terms of monitoring understanding, if you're going to monitor the understanding as professionals, we need to have a common language. So we tried something different last year where a few times during the year, we had the classroom teachers meet in PLCs with the interventionists to look at student data, but also to look at the language and vocabulary we're using. So for example, if one teacher for our most fragile learners are going to call what's typically sight words popcorn words. When they're then going to their intervention and they're hearing the word popcorn words, but the interventionist calls them sight words, you're confusing our most fragile learners. So one of the things we decided to do is how do we make sure we have a common language? And also looking at our student data, it was through that work that we realized that we had some concerns in our phonemic awareness instruction, which led us to purchasing, with the support of the district, the Heggerty Phonemic Awareness Program. So we were pleased to where we were, and Melissa will tell you where we're going.
All right, so starting with a sense of belonging. So we've talked about, and you've heard this evening, over the last 2 years, we've all been impacted by COVID-19 in a variety of ways, both our students and staff, from either their physical health or their social emotional health. So since this school year is our first non-COVID school year since 2019, we are going to work on enhancing our culture of positivity across all settings, with students and with staff. To this end, we purchased the book, The Energy Bus by John Gordon, for all staff, and then the Energy Bus for Kids for each classroom. Both books teach and review strategies that focus on the positive, providing ways to spread positivity and how to persevere through challenging tasks or challenging times. The original version of the book, the chapter book for staff, centers around a character by the name of George, who's having a tough day. His car is broken down, he can't get to work. He's struggling with work and with life, so he's trying to balance all that. So because he doesn't have a car, he takes a bus to work, and he meets the bus driver, Joy. And he has conversations with her over a series of weeks on different strategies that he can use to help remain positive both at work and at home. So the student version of that book also has a character by the name of George. However, he's not struggling to drive to work. However, he stayed up late the night before playing video games. He got up for school late. He almost missed the bus, barely got his breakfast in, and now he's lost his math workbook. So his bus driver also teaches him strategies to remain positive and get through a school day. So what are some of these strategies? Well, for the adults, in the adult version of the text, it states that you're the driver of your bus. Invite people on your bus and share your vision for your road ahead. Don't focus your energy on what's called the energy vampires. So those are those people who will spread negativity, but rather get your positive people on your bus that would help you reach your goals. Some examples for the students. We ask them to create a positive vision. If you can see it, you can create it. And not energy vampires, but rather stating no bullies should be allowed on your bus. So these strategies have been reviewed with staff during staff meetings. It's how we get started or how we end the meeting. It was also taught to the students through a read aloud that Mr. Porter and I did through the magic of technology on Google Classroom. And we try to remind them of those strategies during the day or during morning or afternoon announcements. So given the challenges we have experienced over the last few years, these books will help to shine a light on Potter and what we do well, encourage us to persevere in those challenging times, and enhance and refine the positive, supportive, and collaborative environment we have. Moving on to grade-appropriate instruction. We are part of the district pilot of the Foundations program. So one teacher across our building from grades K to 3 is piloting this program. Our literacy coach is working closely with these grade level teachers to plan the lessons, teach the lessons, and then collaborate to discuss the challenges and benefits of the program and its resources. They're also reflecting on the insights they gain about the requirements to teach the program. Through our district, we're collecting data to compare the classrooms that are piloting the program with a classroom that is not, using it to determine if the program is successful in increasing student achievement in the following areas. So phonemic awareness, phonics, word study, handwriting, and spelling. Under monitoring understanding, we continue with our work of refining, analyzing student data to provide targeted, just-in-time support and intervention. Through the use of progress monitoring, we are continuing to create intervention groups or supports for our students that are fluid, but also will increase dialogue between the regular education teacher as well as the interventionist, so that our instruction, both inside and outside the classroom, connect to each other to increase student learning. To this end, we have updated some of our RTI procedures to include paperwork that will highlight the who, the what, and how often an intervention or Tier 1 or Tier 2 support happens in the classroom and the successes that the students are having. And that is our work for this year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least.
Yep, last for tonight.
Yep, for tonight.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having us here tonight to present our update for the Quinn School. So I will begin by updating the 21-22 progress, and as you've heard from all the other elementary colleagues, we were impacted obviously the same exact way by COVID, and all the things you've heard tonight are applicable to the things that we've had to do as well. Going to the sense of belonging, if you recall last year when we did our presentation, our entire point of emphasis at staff meetings, school improvement plan, was really building relationships with families, not knowing how they were being impacted at home. And that was our message all throughout last year, and it continues to be our message this year. And compliments to the Quinn staff. It doesn't matter what position you have in the building, people are going above and beyond to build those relationships all throughout last year as we were transitioning back into more of a regular school model again. And we did that multiple ways, constantly consisting and monitoring of attendance. Towards the end of the year, we were able to get back to some type of in-person PBIS rallies. We weren't able to have parents, but we were able to get back into at least having the kids in the auditorium, and we were able to live stream that so parents could see it, as well as special ed meetings. We were able to have some of those meetings in person towards the end of last year, so it started to bring back that feel of community and more personal relationships. So again, all of the work that the staff has done and continues to do, even this year, has been great. So I'd just like to put that out there to everybody involved at Quinn. As far as last year for the grade appropriate instruction, as Mrs. Paveo was talking about, we talked a lot about the accelerated roadmap. And really it was trying to use data to find those entry points of what is the most appropriate place for whole group instruction, and then from there obviously breaking it down to specific students or groups of students of where are the kids at, what data are we using to make sure we're targeting instruction to close all sorts of gaps and be aware of where students are at. And again, you'll hear from Mrs. Thomas and Mrs. Yarmilovich a little bit more about that, as that continues to be a point of emphasis of really understanding student deficits and what we need to do to close those gaps. And that was obviously supported in multiple ways by our literacy and math coach. And as far as monitoring understanding, the big piece that we've been working on for years now and we continue to monitor and continue to update is our RTI process, where we currently we meet every 6 to 8 weeks, a team of people from related service to school psychologists to administration to teachers, special ed, reading and math specialists, all come to really analyze the data, see what practices have been implemented and what we can do to constantly put supports into place to support student learning. So those are things that we were doing last year aligned with the accelerated roadmap, and Mrs. Thomas and Mrs. Yarmilovich will update you with plans for this year.
Hi, everybody. So for a sense of belonging, we have established an opportunity for our special education program teachers to have common planning time. This is something different than in the past. Typically, they've met on their own, so we really thought it was important for them to have that established time to meet together. And in addition to our PBIS rallies, we have a new mascot, our lion, and at Quinn School we roar. So it's very exciting. It's something new this year that we're all very excited about. And with that, thanks to our PTO and our PBIS committee, when you go into Quinn, there's no denying that we are the Lions, and we have our expectations and our matrices everywhere around the building in all settings of the school, even outside on the playground. If you've been outside, you've also probably noticed that we have the expectations out there as well for students. So we're happy that, and we're going to continue with that this year.
Hi, everyone. In terms of grade appropriate instruction, this year we worked really hard to create a PD plan that we do at the beginning of the year that is truly differentiated. So we always talk about at Quinn how we have this diverse population of students. Well, that comes with a diverse amount of teachers who have so much experience and knowledge. So we're really using what we have in the building and listening to the teachers and trying to give them what they want. And that means if it's different from what it looks like at the beginning of the year, we're flexible in putting those things in place. That also to that is providing different resources. If things come up throughout the school year, we try to figure out how to give them what they need to make sure that their instruction is exactly how they need it to be with the group of kids in front of them. Just as everybody continues to say, we're all monitoring for understanding. We're using that PLC time. We are able to do that with the schedule so that a grade level once a week can meet as a cohort and talk about their best practices, the data, what it looks like, what they need. And as Mr. Granfield highlighted, every 8 weeks we are coming back to the table and having those in-depth RTI meetings with everybody we need at the table, a special education teacher, a school psychologist, reading or math interventionist, myself, Mr. Granfield, or Mrs. Thomas. So we are progress monitoring and using that data for good. And that's what we're doing at Quinn.
Does anyone have any questions?
Quick question, and just on yours. Do you have a name for the mascot yet? I know watching the
Competition, right?
I know watching the video, which is excellent, type of deal.
So that started this week.
Oh,
So
okay.
students and staff are able to vote.
Okay.
So by Thursday, we'll have the votes in on what our name will be. Some really exciting names, so we'll see.
Okay, I was just
Get ready.
curious.
Get
Okay.
ready, Mr. Nunes. I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to
Done.
start?
Chris?
We can go down the line. Go
Yep,
ahead.
that's fine.
That works. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you to all the school level administrators for putting together your school improvement plans and presenting them. I found them extremely detailed, and there's certainly some overlapping themes here and overarching themes. I will say that I can fully understand how much work goes into these each year. In the collaboration and just making sure that you're covering everything from your school, what's important to your school, but also looking at the overall district view. With everything considered, one of the things that I want to make sure that we don't forget as a district is that while, I'm thrilled that we're having all these in-person gatherings and things are back to normal, really fully at this point, is that we can't forget that we did just go through 2 long years, and I bring that up because one of the keynote sessions at the last week's joint convention, superintendent school committee convention, one of the keynotes was a clinical psychologist. I think it was on Thursday that just talked about how important it is to make sure that we continue to check on our students and check on each other, check on our staff to make sure that we're getting through this together, because it's certainly the social emotional piece is real. I know that there are certainly those issues that still very much exist in our district, and I hope that from the district standpoint, from central office down to the schools, that we're continuing to do our due diligence to make sure that we're addressing our social-emotional students that are clearly, some of them reaching out and making sure that we're, because let's face it, if a student doesn't come to class in a good place, if doesn't come to school in a good place, if that student is on the bus crying out or reaching out, if that student is coming to the class to their desk with significant behavior issues, we need to address those first before they're able to learn. So I just hope that the district, while I am thrilled at everything that's going on and all the work and effort that's put into these school improvement plans, I sincerely hope that the district is taking into consideration the full overarching needs of our learners. Thank you. And thank you to the administrators for presenting.
Dr. Jenkins.
So thank you. I want to also thank everyone who did a presentation today, and I specifically want to focus and give you kudos for your focus on sense of belonging. I teach at the university level, and I know that a sense of belonging is one of the strongest predictors of academic success. You need to feel like someone has your back and that you are engaged in the work that you are doing. I also want to push back on the notion that this is political. Dartmouth Public Schools should be a safe, welcoming, loving environment for every single child who comes to school. There should be windows and mirrors for every child. That's not political, that's about loving our children. And so I give you all kudos for the focus that you are having on that sense of belonging for every single child in our schools. Regardless of their abilities, regardless of their identities, they belong here and we welcome them. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jenkins. Ms. Amaral?
Thank you to my colleagues who really put my points quite eloquently together. I too am quite impressed with the focus on that sense of belonging. A few weeks ago, I participated on a panel for Department of Ed, put together a family and community engagement conference, and they entitled it was a Better Together Summit. And that really speaks to whether you're whoever you are working within the public schools or the families that are sending their loved ones to our schools, the adults in their lives, the caregivers, the guardians, the parents. That sense of belonging is critical. Rick and others spoke to this, but you, Mr. Porter, you spoke about reaching out to the families, and I think back to that conference and some stories that were shared about student attendance and the implications of the pandemic and wreaking havoc within families. And it was actually a topic on the overuse of filing on families for not sending their children. And one particular story was to help people in attendance of this workshop kind of think differently around, and you kind of like, I'm going to go and try to focus this. I can go on tangents. But was to make us think about, wow, you don't know what's going on in someone's life. And it was a particular story of a neighboring district, and a wraparound specialist talked about this family. A student hadn't attended school, and well, family was recovering from some significant issues themselves, the parents of this child. And the first thought was, we're going to file on this family. And lo and behold, with some engagement and visiting the school and getting to know the family and understanding what was really happening, it was sort of not taking the past, but looking at what they were dealing with. It was a family who had gotten so used to, the interdependence of having their child at home and letting go of that child after 2.5, 3, and having them, I keep looking at you, Rick, but you just spoke to this about how you're in the homes and getting to know those families and their stories and helping them trust and build that relationship. And it's a good story. The student is back in school and all of those things like you talked about, and the increase in attendance. But it really just stems from that relationship building, that sense of belonging, that understanding, that, bringing back the humanness in what you all do so well. It just is so heartening to hear that thread throughout everything that each of you had spoke about. And that goes to, thinking about the social emotional well-being of our educators as well. Because we're all in this together, and we're better together. And I'm just really glad to see that, and to see the focus on the data to target all of our learners to catch up. The learning loss that Desi knows, that we all know has happened over the course of the pandemic and coming back to school. But then, you know, just looking at each student individually based on some of those data points to see, you know, wherever they may lie, you know, and helping them get back to their full potential, because that will predict, you know, the success. You know, education is about preparing us for life, and which is also impacted by the relationships that we build. So we're all better together. That's my theme. So thank you.
Yes, they're so eloquent.
This one.
So no, I do want to, you know, echo and tag along, but also say, you know, I am very impressed by the mechanisms we have in place to continue this work. And again, I know I referenced before, but I did like jump into the Learn Launch workshops because I think it's, you know, that is an impressive group that's coming through and giving support to our educators as we continue to make sure that, you know, when the workshops is about fostering a sense of belonging, how do we do that and how do we make sure, you know, again, to continue to reinforce and inspire educators with those tools, and we all need those, you know, consistent reminders. I thought it was also very, you know, just looking at ourselves, you know, and I thought back to, you know, Potter when we were talking about making sure our language is consistent, just in terms of, you know, I was curious, you know, they were looking within, you know, in Mr. Pert, we were looking within our school, but again, within the district, because as we turn into middle school, you know, we want to make sure. So I'm so glad that those consistencies remain and those languages remain consistent. So I'm really grateful because I know this group of administrators, and, you know, in my experiences, you work so well together. You have so many relationships and you have so many conversations. And while that might not be like known by throughout, you know, everyone that's listening, I think it is really important that we have such, you know, a strong collegiality among our administrators, that they have those, again, they have those conversations. And I think, you know, the pivoting of, you know, our curriculum coordinators as well, just to be, you know, to be in the elementary schools, to have those conversations, to share those conversations are so important to like sharing the best practices from all of our schools and staying on the same page so that our students are making that transition into the somewhat difficult years in the middle school. So, so I'm, you know, again, I'm very impressed, and I feel like we are, you know, as the administration of the school, we very much have our eyes on these students and making sure that, you know, we're going to be keeping their social emotional health and their academic well-being in front of us. So I'm impressed with that.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. I'll just echo my comment, my colleagues. It's obvious that the theme here, from my perspective, is the students, and we're taking care of the students with whatever they need, socially and emotionally, and trying to make sure that we're getting back to a semblance of normalcy that we haven't had for the past couple of years. And yes, the pandemic, thank God, is done. A few cases here and there, and that's like the flu, it's going to be there type of deal. But we're back concentrating on students and everything that goes along with it. So my thanks to all of you for a job well done. I appreciate them. Now, we got to take a vote on, okay.
need a motion
I was just going to say, we need a motion to accept the 4 elementary.
Make a motion that we accept
school
the
improvement
school
plans.
improvement plans for our elementary schools.
Second, we got a motion by Mr. Oliver, a second by Ms. Amaral to accept the plans. On the motion, any discussion? Chair hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, good job.
Thank you, everybody.
No problem. All right, old business, school committee policy JF, school admissions, second reading and vote. We had this at our last meeting. There were no adjustments or anything. I don't know if anybody has any other.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Dr. Jenkins. Second by Ms. Waite. On the motion, any discussion?
I just would like to add one thing. I think we made one minor revision to remove
Okay.
gendered references, and I appreciate that.
I
It
apologize.
just shows how easy it is to do these sorts of things when we think about them and we keep our eyes on them. So thank you for that.
Yep.
Nope, no problem. My apologies.
Yeah, one little
No
thing.
worries.
Yeah.
It was just I wanted to make sure to thank the administration for making, the committee for making those changes.
No, that's fine. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
All right.
Desi will be happy.
Yes, we'll keep them happy. I won't go there. No, not at all. No way, no how. Next on the agenda is the superintendent's evaluation, which we went through at our last meeting, and unfortunately, I forgot to forward this to Kate for her to forward to the rest of the committee, so we
Yeah,
got that done.
I'll make a motion to approve, because I was the one who asked for the delay so that we could at least see it before we voted on it. It's only on the agenda because of me, so I will make a
No, and
motion to approve.
believe me.
Thank you.
I'm fine. It's not a, you know.
I'll second that.
So we move by Dr. Jenkins and second by Mr. Oliver on the motion. Any discussion? And my thanks to
Thank you, guys.
Kathleen for doing all the computer work to put it together.
Well, thanks to the two of you for all of your work.
Yeah. It was easy, and then meeting with Dr. Gifford to put it together. So that's fine. Okay,
It's done.
there it is.
Did we actually vote?
I don't think we voted.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
didn't
All
vote
in
yet.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
For some reason, we don't want to vote on this thing. I don't know. It's been going on and on.
I'm just gonna wait till after you're retired.
Yeah,
Oh,
you
that's
know.
it, yeah. Wait, geez, that's your last one, too.
Oh,
you
my
know?
goodness.
Oh, God, okay. Anywho, all right. Still catching up from the weekend. Loss of sleep.
I bet.
Town meeting update. Mr. Kiley?
Thank you, Mr. Noon. So on September 21st, I presented to you folks what we might expect at the October 18th town meeting. We, fortunately, were here in this building on the 18th, and the town meeting approved all of our requests. It was $1,010,000 worth of requests. Security-related improvements relating to doors and windows and telephones and intercom totaling $460,000. Playground improvements, $250,000. Parking lot repaving, $150,000. And furniture replacement, $150,000. So that was good news, and always happy to have the continued support of the town. We appreciate that. The only bit of bad news relating to the capital improvement plan that we got was that the Mass School Building Authority decided to suspend their accelerated repair program. So what they cited was the recent bid results were coming in 43% higher than estimates. I'm not shocked by that, but that's the reality. And supply chain issues have made those projects prohibitive and really can't get done in time. When you're talking about most of these projects, you're really focused on time when students aren't in the buildings. And if you can't complete them within that time, I don't know how you can really undertake them. So they recognize that they don't have the money to do the program anyway, so they've suspended it. But what that means for us, we were sort of deferring our high school roof project until we had a better indication of the economic environment relating to construction. So now that's going to be delayed even further. So we've already this week began to undertake some repair work that we hope will help string us along. There's significant issues with this roof, and it does need to be addressed. I think it would be prohibitive to have the town attempt to address it without the MSBA at this point in time. We probably couldn't accomplish the project anyway. So the reality of the situation is that our best course of action is to wait and hope that the MSBA, hope that the economic environment improves and the MSBA is able to continue their program, which I would expect at some point will occur. So that's sort of our bad news. We also, in our capital improvement plan, have some other projects that might be related to the MSBA that are further out in our capital improvement plan. So those projects would also be delayed and pushed off a little further because really this roof is going to be our priority project relating to that. So,
Mr. Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Nunes. Quick question for you, Mr. Kiley. So in the event, well, it's happened that they've suspended the program. So what are your thoughts and maybe what are the committee thoughts on, is this something that, do we look to the Springtown meeting to maybe ask for a couple of $100,000 in capital to keep our roof at least from leaking? Because let's face it, without a dry roof, without a solid roof, everything within this building is jeopardized.
Yes.
So-
Including in rooms right next to where we are, where there's been continued leaking problems that we're trying to address. So one thing we're doing with the capital improvement plan, so right now we're creating our new capital improvement plan that will cover FY '24 through '28. We'll be bringing that forward to you folks very soon, either the next school committee meeting or the one after that, for your consideration. And in that, we will do just that, is include some monies to, we don't want to spend, we want to spend as little as possible to maintain a appropriate learning environment, right? That's the goal. Because all we will be doing is patching things, and it will all get ripped up as soon as we actually do proceed with a project. But the reality is that a project's likely 3 years from being completed at the earliest, because it takes a year to design. And so it takes a year to approve from the MSBA, a year to design, a year to construct, 3-4 years from now, maybe.
I think we'd be penny wise and pound foolish to not invest some money through capital to fix our problematic areas, because if not, the alternative is, leaky drywall that's ruined, or electronics that are ruined, or mold in the floors. So I would rather spend the money now than...
We have buckets as it stands right now. And some of those things are what we were trying to address this week with some repairs. So we'll stay on top of it and hopefully move forward. And of course, any monies we get for roofing repairs would be considered at the June town meeting. So, it's not something that'll help us through the winter or anything. If we felt like we had such significant issues that, we needed more immediate funds, there are other options for us to think about. And we could, talk to the town about some emergency transfer funds or something, something else to assist us. But I'm hoping we can string things along on a small level just to get to where we do have some money to fix things. But.
Anything else, Mr. Oliver?
That's all I have.
Okay. Anybody, Kathleen? Mary? No. My only thought, as you put the capital plan together, those projects that have to be strung out type of deal, if you could just notate them on the report so that everybody is aware, CIP is aware, FinCom, Board of Selectmen, et cetera, town meeting, is, what we've had to string out because MSBA is not doing that anymore. Or at the moment, they've suspended it, I should say. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, we good with town meeting? Okay, thank you. Okay, new business, superintendent search, something near and dear. Here we go. First and foremost, I did have a conversation with Tom Scott at MASS not last week, the week before, with regards to posting for an interim type of deal. I asked Dr. Gifford to kind of work on something to get up to him and put out there. Personally, I'm looking at if they come back for our December meeting, which is, December 12th type of deal, and then we have some time to look at them and make some type of a decision in January. Take what, we look at them, take our top 3 and interview them and see who we can put in place. How does that work for everybody? Chris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, that's certainly an option. We're looking for your last day, Dr. Gifford, is March 1st?
Yep.
Okay. So March, April, May, June, so 4 months.
Yeah.
My only concern about bringing in a retired superintendent at this point with 4, I would 100% agree with if this was going to be a year position. if this was going to be a year-long or a 6-month position. But to bring in a retired superintendent for 4 months that doesn't know Dartmouth, that is really our staff is gonna have to spend time bringing that person up to speed. You know, I would personally, and this is just for take it for what it's worth, you know, I think that we have people that are very well-versed in-house to get us through the 4 months. You know, personally, and once again, you know, and I hate to put him on the spot, but we have our own Mr. Kiley. He's I've been very impressed with him since I've come on the committee. I've known him for close to 10 years. He was on the first superintendent search. You know, I don't know if it's in his desire or wheelhouse to get the district through and help us out for 4 months, but we do have a solid leadership team under Dr. Gifford. We brought in two curriculum directors. So, you know, my thought would be to, you know, ask Mr. Kiley if this is something that he'd be interested in the endeavor, because one, we're also going to have the opportunity to have a considerable amount of overlap here, because the two of you have worked together for 8 years now. So there's a lot of shared institutional knowledge. So that's just my thought, that we have a very viable candidate in-house to pay a superintendent of school, to pay a retired superintendent $40,000, $50,000, and have them, our own resources, get them up to speed, you know, to where we're at, to bring in someone new. You know, I would just be interested to hear the committee's thoughts. That's kind of where I'm at on the hiring a new superintendent. I think we should look at immediately reaching. All right, we'll
go there.
Thank you.
That's
Part two.
That's
That's
all.
part, that's part two.
That's what I have.
Thanks, Chris. Dr. Jenkins.
Oh, I have to go next? Yeah,
Since
you
Mr.
know,
Oliver started, I'm just coming down the line.
That's fine. It's kind of awkward to like ask someone how they feel on the spot in an open meeting, like, do you want to do the job? But we have to have this conversation in open meeting. So I guess what I would say is, I'm not averse to Mr. Oliver's idea. I don't want to put Mr. Kiley on the spot to have to make a decision now. So maybe it's something that can be explored between now and our next meeting and come back, because I don't want Mr. Kiley to feel like, well, maybe he's like, no, and he can tell us that right now. But if the answer is maybe, then maybe we should wait until our next meeting to see where we stand on that, if the committee's okay with it.
I wasn't expecting a response tonight by any means.
Unless it's no, unless he's in his head he's screaming no right now, you can just let us know.
something.
But if it's maybe, then you know I'm fine with maybe having that conversation internally about whether or not they think that could work. I think again for 4 months, you know, we had experience. We had a vacancy in our office. We brought someone in, and it ended up being more time for me to train the person to do the work than to actually do the work. And then they left after 4 months, and so then I had to train someone new again. And so I can see the value, like sometimes it's just easier to get something done as opposed to having to train someone for a short period of time. So I can see the advantages to that, certainly.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah,
Ms. Amaral?
I am agreeable to what Chris brought up, as I see Jim kind of going down in his seat. And I'm agreeable to what Dr. Jenkins mentioned, obviously not, you know, to think it through, you know, because of all the reasons mentioned, you know, unless, you know, alternative, if we had a, you know, Mr. Shea in our back pocket to come back. Yeah, different one. But, you know.
Back pocket. Sorry, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I would be agreeable to something like that if it were a possibility based on all of what was mentioned.
Mary?
I agree.
Mary, you just did okay. Okay, so I guess I'm the only fly in the ointment. but that's okay. So what else is new? No, and believe me, one of the wonderful classes I took was on superintendent searches at the school committee, which was excellent, by the way. But we'll get into that in a bit. I've thought about, that was kind of like the first thought out of my head, my
Said it
mouth,
to me.
when Dr. Gifford said to Kathleen and I, that type of deal. But I also understand the constraints that Mr. Kiley is under. It's budget season, that type of deal, and, you know, everything else that is going on. So if, you know, he, and again, I'm not putting him on the spot. If he was to respectfully decline, I would totally understand that. If he was to accept, I would totally understand that and appreciate it. So that's where I stand on this, okay? I mean, in talking with Tom Scott at MASS, there are a number of good candidates out there, some from the area that are kind of familiar with Dartmouth. So, you know, for argumentative sake, it's not like we're getting somebody from, you know, North Adams, Massachusetts, where's Dartmouth? You know, that type of deal. So that's a possibility of, I mean, we can rehash, and I don't mean that, we can talk about this again at our next meeting if we want. I'm good with that part of it. So it's not like we need somebody tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
So I'm good with that.
Plenty of time.
Right,
I wouldn't
okay.
say plenty of time, but
Yeah.
we have enough time.
It'll be here in a hurry. Okay. In addition, that being said, as I said at the MASC conference last week, there was a session on searching for a superintendent, and I gave you one of these. They had some handouts. Thank you. So I've and this was an MASC that they ran type of deal. Dorothy ran it, but she did a great job. She wasn't hire us, that type of deal. Here were the things you needed to look at and go through, and that type of deal. NESDEC was also there. The Collins Center was also there. So those are the three, because for the most part, you've got to do your best to get 3 bids. If, you know, when we hired Dr. Gifford, if those of you that were on, we had 2. We only got 2. We tried for a third, and we couldn't get a third to submit a bid. Well, you snooze, you lose, okay, that type of deal. So we have that type of deal. We're going to need to bring them in, and maybe we look at bringing them in December, okay? December 12th, we'll just stack that meeting to the guild type of deal. We'll bring, we'll put an RFP together for,
Yeah, we can,
You
we sort of have
probably
one.
Got one, I'm sure.
yeah,
From 9 years ago.
Yeah.
8 years ago.
just, you know, make the tweaks, you know, and just put it out there. You know, I know, talking with MASC and NESDEC and even the Collins Center, they were interested. So again, you put it out there, whoever applies, that type of deal. I will say this, and it was drilled into our heads at this session type of deal, is this is our baby. We own this process, okay? I will, and please allow me with my 32 years of experience to expound on this. We are going to get a lot of phone calls. Once this thing becomes public, you know, the finalists become public, because everything is done behind closed doors until the finalists are announced. Once the finalists are announced, and I'll talk about this more, but we will get a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, you know, Johnny, Susie, Jimmy, Timmy, whatever type of deal. Thank you very much, looking at everything. So I just want you to, you know, to be aware of what is coming down the pike. We do have time. You know, they were talking about, you know, Dorothy talked about, you know, December, January, putting things out. She says, at the moment, there would probably be a good pool to grab from. So, which is nice to hear, type of deal. So, that's my spiel on this. And I'm open to any and all suggestions, so please let me know. Chris?
So the plan is December, whoever wants to come, we'll put out the RFP, whoever wants to come. I think that's like the deadline. We need to have people in here by December to present to the committee.
Yeah, they've got to.
Because this needs to go public with
Right away.
with a flyer, and because
Yeah.
if you remember, there's a lot of putting together. We probably still have the brochure and a lot of the paraphernalia that goes along with the superintendent search. This needs to go public on all the websites by sometime in January.
Yes,
in order
exactly.
to get that out there.
Yeah, exactly. Everything, it's got to start dropping in. The meetings that whomever will need to schedule, with community members, faculty, staff, us.
Right.
Things of that nature. Anybody else with a question, comments? Dr. Jenkins?
Well, I'll just say, thinking about the timing of this, I was here for the last one. I heard Dr. Gifford. It was great. It was great because I think you two did it, and I didn't have to do it, of the 5 of us.
And Mr. Garth, yeah.
Oh, Mr. Garth,
That's
okay.
right.
Mr. Garth was on
But
the
I think,
Chris was on- Chris was on that
right,
committee.
That's right.
we have to be mindful of the fact that there's also an election right in the middle of this, and I hope that my colleagues continue if they decide to run. But I do think we should be mindful of that because we do want continuity. I mean, the last thing we want is for someone to be on the committee and then not be on the committee because that disrupts the continuity of the process. If we're doing, we can do all of us being on the committee, but if we do it like the last time,
Yeah.
I think ultimately it might come down to 2 of the 3 of us because of
Well,
the
you're gonna-
need to
yeah.
ensure continuity.
Yeah, you're gonna need,
I think we did 2 last
yeah,
time.
you're gonna have, you normally have, 2 on
You
this.
can do more, but then you've got to
Well-
do it's a regular meeting and the postings and you got
Yeah,
to go to
it's
executive
a
session
it's a
and all
regular
that.
committee, it's a regular committee, but it ends up being an executive session because of the,
Right,
but
right.
you've got all of that
Right.
open meeting law stuff. And
absolutely.
I'm seeing Mr. Smith roll his eyes as he, we talk about that, but, yeah, it all has to be, so yeah, 2, and then, somewhere down the line, we're gonna have to think of how big a committee do we want, okay? Not,
Yep.
and again, out of the box, my thought is 9 to 11.
I think we had 11 last time.
Yeah,
Somebody
okay.
tells me we had 11.
Yeah, and that's fine, again, 9 to 11, so it doesn't become too overburdened.
Yep.
That type of deal. So, again, things that we can think about and kind of finalize up come, our next meeting or December 12th, we can kind of finalize this. Kathleen?
To Shannon's point, I sat on the committee as a parent with sort of a purview of special education, which is really important. Which I would love to do again, and no announcement, but I do believe if I run for school committee again, which I do plan to do that because I'm really passionate and feel like I've got some more work to do. However, would it say the committee when we decide? Would I be able to sit
No.
as a parent? It would have to be as a school committee seat.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, that's how that would, unfortunately, that's how that would flow.
Okay.
That's it. Ms. Waite?
I don't think I have anything right now.
Okay, that's fine. Chris, anything else? You good?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So, all right.
So we get the RFP.
Yep.
Ready to go.
Ready to go? Yep, Jim?
Yeah, technically, it won't be an RFP. The dollar threshold is going to be such that it's going to be below, it's going to be a quote process,
process,
right?
that's
I'm
right.
assuming, unless
Yeah.
things have really changed in terms of the pricing. I hope not. So that'll help because it'll expedite our ability to
Right.
get quotes and evaluate them and bring them
Yeah.
to you, and, so.
Yeah.
I can pull out what we have from the previous search and maybe share that with you, Mr. Nunes, and
fine. Yeah.
you can take a look at it and see if it sort of fits the bill and
Yeah.
that there's, I don't think, that much has changed, in the grand
That's
scheme
fine.
of things.
Yep.
But, yeah.
No problem. Thank you, sir. Certain
All
things like
right.
that I will defer. Very good. Okay, that takes care of that. Next on our agenda is proposed meeting dates for January through June. So it looks like we...
Nobody got back to us that anything was wrong, so.
Yeah, everybody's good?
Yeah.
January 9th
Fine.
and the 23rd, February 13th because of
Yep.
vacation week.
Right.
March 6th, March 20th, April 10th, April 24th, May 15th, June 6th, and June 27th. So, we're good with those? So I'll take a motion. Go ahead, I'm
I don't
sorry.
know about my availability at the end of May and into June, but if I'm not here for one of them, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, that's fine. I got just that one in May anyway, so.
Yep.
And we can, if something pops up, Shannon, we probably, hopefully have got the flexibility to pop it up once, pop it down one.
I'll let you know if anything
Yeah,
comes up.
that's fine.
Same way a little bit
Huh?
at the end of May. At the end of May, they might be the same way.
Yeah, no, yeah. Moving time, moving day.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Exactly.
All right, so I'll take a motion to approve these.
So moved.
Okay, second.
Moved by Dr. Jenkins, second by Ms. Wade. On the motion, any discussion? Chair hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Superintendent's update.
Okay, I was going to mention the Envision Learning and Portrait of a Learner, but they covered that, so I think we're good with all of that. I just wanted to mention, we are continuing with the Bay State Textile, as you know, the bins, but I just wanted to bring this up because every month we get a report of what the school, so this month was $1,280 in the school, so it continues, and
I will also note that it is now illegal to throw away textiles in the state of Massachusetts. So handily, we have bins at all of
Maybe
our
we'll get
schools
more.
to help
We'll
people
get more.
follow the law.
Can we get more bins? I was just curious about that, like, because I knew at one point we were having a problem with capacity, and then and now if this is if it is the law, like, would that, because we've had stuff like, again,
I
that was an
know,
issue
yeah.
for us, so I'm wondering,
Maybe we could like put them on other town properties.
all over the place.
but only if they come back to us.
Right.
That's right. You throw a couple at the farm, why not? you know?
There was a big discussion at the select board's meeting
Yes,
about that.
yes. Oh,
was
So,
there?
Yeah, I won't
But
go
it's been a good program, and
It
again,
has.
this
That's
money
right.
goes in the principal's funds, and whether they use it, and Cushman is really leading the way, I think, lately. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, speaking of Cushman, Dr. Dale called me, and she received another $5,000 from the Feinstein Institute, and they get the golden ticket at the school. So today she decided to go pick the check up from Mr. Feinstein, as he's getting quite older, but he wasn't available, so she was kind of bummed. Usually she just has him send it, so that's exciting. I want to bring up, it's a little bit in the distance, but we are having two presentations. I don't think you were there during our orientation days, but one of the days we had a group called Minding Your Mind present to the teachers. And this group is
What was it called, Dr. Gilbert?
Minding Your Mind, and it's kind of funny. The first time we had them, they said, "Oh, just give us some money." Like it's not it's almost like a nonprofit, if you will. I'll just read kind of it. It's Minding Your Mind is dedicated to ending stigma and destructive behaviors associated with mental health issues, moving away from a crisis-based response to prevention through education. They use storytelling. All of their speakers have been through some kind of crisis in their lives. And the young man that we had, we actually saw him, it was probably 2 years ago already, at a special education summit. And it was so powerful, this young man that spoke about his life and how he always portrayed himself as the young kid that was happy and go lucky and involved, but deep down inside he was struggling so much and had the signs of depression and attempted suicide, et cetera, et cetera. But he speaks about how educators and people that come into the life to help. So it was so powerful, followed by one of the psychologists that works and giving tips and resources and works in the group as well. So we decided, a number of teachers came up to us and said how wonderful it was that we are bringing them to our middle and high school students to speak about, there's hope and there's people you can reach out to and that kind of thing. So that's going to be on December 7th and 8th for the day programs, the middle and high. But also on December 7th, we are offering a parent night. Same thing. And that would be, we'll have more advertisement, but I just kind of want to put that out there. It's really a wonderful, wonderful group of people. Also, I think you probably saw on our Facebook page that Sarah Deakis over at the middle school attended the Association for Middle Level Education National Conference in Orlando, and she had texted me a couple of days before she went. She was like, gulp, because she knew she was presenting with some other colleagues that are on the committees. It's called the Constituent Committee from that group. But she didn't realize her presentation was a featured presentation on the brochure, so she kind of had a heart attack over that. But all went well, so.
Good, that's great.
Yeah, we're proud of that. I did email you the comprehensive district review report, and as I said, I just received that. Matter of fact, Mr. Oliver asked me at the conference, and I said, we just had a draft, we were correct, and then lo and behold, we got the final report. So as I said, I really haven't had a chance to really review it, but our quick review is, it's okay, and again, there's no corrective action, it's just something that's posted on DESE. So you can take a look at that, and we can certainly discuss it at another meeting, just bring up some of the highlights. As I remember, if you remember, they visited all of our schools, they were here for quite a few days, so. Yeah. And just as we get that report, I get another email, and I know Ms. Townsend's about this, the tiered focus monitoring visits that are coming up for the next audit, if you will, or review. So on March 28th and 29th, they'll be coming, and that focuses on special education and civil rights. You probably, as high school parents, Mr. Shea put out a all-call. They're having an analyst drill tomorrow, so again, keeping up with our safety protocols. So staff are aware of that, and parents have been made aware as well. You all know about November 10th, so I guess many of you will be here at the high school for the celebration of the unified banner school again, and being able to celebrate our students at halftime with that. And then one last very important, as you're speaking of replacing me, and I know Mr. Nunes is going to read it also, Ms. Townsend will be resigning at the end of the school year. You might know she's been in law school and is now heading in a new direction to practice law. So she'll be with us longer than me till the end, but that's kind of exciting for her. And I take credit because I was the one that encouraged her to go to law school. So there you go. It's all my fault.
Congratulations.
So she's taking the bar this summer, and we wish her all the best on that. So
Yeah.
she's not gone yet, but
No, she's not going.
So-
You know you're in trouble when, you're the chair and you get an email from the SPED director that says, do you have a few minutes next week or something? So, this day, that day, so, yep, how about Monday at 10 o'clock, okay? And I'm sitting at home having breakfast, and I look, and it's 9:45, and I'm like, I'm not gonna get there at 10 o'clock, send her a quick text, I'm running late, no problem. But she
might want to go
said,
right into that because I'm done.
okay, so she said, that she was leaving, and this is her letter. It's dated October 31st, 2022. It's addressed to myself as chairman and to Dr. Bonnie Gifford, superintendent of Dartmouth Public Schools. Dear Mr. Nunes and Dr. Gifford, according to the terms of my contract of employment with the Dartmouth Public Schools, I hereby notify the school committee that my current contract will expire on June 30th, 2023. I write to inform you that I will not be seeking a successor contract to begin on July 1st, 2023. Over the past 5 years, I have been pursuing my Juris Doctorate degree from UMass Law School. What has emerged from my coursework is a love and a passion for the law beyond what I could have ever anticipated. I truly feel that it is my calling to pursue a career as a lawyer after I graduate and subsequently sit for the Massachusetts bar exam in July of 2023. It has been a pleasure to serve the students and families of Dartmouth as the Pupil Support Service Administrator. The special educators and related service providers in Dartmouth are an inspiration to me, and their work is amazing. The students are incredible, and the families are so nurturing and supportive. Over the past 9 years, I have learned so much, and I am grateful for each and every one of my experiences while serving the district. I am willing to assist in any way as you seek a candidate for the role of Pupil Support Service Administrator. Respectfully, Elizabeth Cabral Townsend. Well,
Thank you.
Beth, all the best. I know you and I had a long conversation type of deal, but in public, thank you very much for everything. You will be missed. And wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you.
I don't know if you have anything you'd like to say?
Sure. You're putting everybody on the spot
I am.
tonight. Mr. Kiley, Ms. Townsend.
I know, it's true.
Thank you so much. I just want to, I'm just emotional right now. So it's weird because obviously I wrote the letter, but hearing it, it's just, every word of it is true. I would not want to do this position or this work in any other place. This is truly just a shifting gears and something that I've kind of come to learn is more of my calling. But this is the most incredible district. I am so honored to have been selected by you in 2014. I'm grateful for every minute that I've spent here. Thank you, and to all of the teachers who and staff members who have just done the most amazing work for our students with disabilities. It truly has been an honor and a privilege, and I want to thank you all very much for your support and for taking a chance on me, because I know I had not been a special ed director when I got hired in 2014. So thank you for that, and I just look forward to continuing the work, like I said, through June 30th. So.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you, Beth. Okay. So that's another one we're going to have to post.
Yeah, come on now.
Get into.
We'll do that a little later.
Yeah, that's later. That's, that's one of our responsibilities also, so. Thank God for ed reform. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. No, I should listen to a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, my turn. Seriously, tomorrow's election day. Polls open at 7 o'clock till 8 o'clock. Please do your God-given constitutional rights and go out and vote. Congratulations to our sports teams and their tournament runs that they've had, especially our volleyball, who won again tonight. So they move on. I'm not sure when their next game is, but good luck to them. Something that I was unaware of, and I will do the mea culpas when I see Ms. Braga, their coach, is that they're also in they do competitions type of deal, and found out that this past weekend they placed first in Division II, second in the SEC Conference, and that's qualified them for a spot in the MSAA Regional, so congratulations to them. I didn't realize that they did that, so good for them. We have a home football game, our last one of the season, Thursday night at 7 o'clock at Living Memorial Stadium. And last but certainly not least, congratulations to our high school band who scored another trifecta type of deal. They, last weekend, the 29th and 30th, the 29th, we were in Rutgers for Band of America's New Jersey Regional Championship for the first time, and we ended up winning that competition with a score of a little over 86. Got on the buses Sunday morning, went to Reading, and dropped a 99.2 out of 100 for Nesbitt Championships Division 5. And then this past Saturday night down at MetLife Stadium, and it must have been an omen because the Jets were playing, so the stadium was all lit up in green. So, we were talking about that. They scored a 97-7, took all the captions, and brought home another first place for their 6th in a row. So, not bad. Ryan?
Volleyball should be Friday at around 5 o'clock, right? It looks like.
What's that?
Volleyball will be Friday, and we're thinking 5 o'clock, but Andy will have the exact time.
Okay. 5 o'clock Friday night, but we'll get that, take a look at the website under high school athletics, team schedules, and click on the volleyball. That'll be good. Thank you. Okay, other matters, my committee members. Kathleen?
I guess we have time, but I'm just going to mention that on November 29th, so it's the end of the month, but I'm going to still put a plug out for our annual required basic rights in special education. It's sort of like a refresher for parents like myself. It's always good to revisit the information, and Ms. Townsend will be presenting that at Quinn Elementary School from 6 to 7:30, which will be great.
29th?
It is the 29th. Gosh, is it a Tuesday or, I don't
Okay.
I'm not looking. So yeah, the 29th of November. We had our first meeting at Cushman, which was great, where we had some folks come and deliver some resources and answer questions. And I think we had about 20 parents and some staff as well, some staff. So it was great to have folks back in person, and hope to continue that to engage more families in growing and learning and being better together.
Well, actually, so it just came across my radar, but the orchestra, the Hartmouth High School Orchestra, is having their performance at the Z, and it's not until December 20th, but it's my understanding those tickets do sell out, and they're going quickly, so anyone that is interested in that performance, you might want to purchase your tickets. I think they said there's something like 150 tickets left, and, they sold quite a few, so just as something to keep in mind.
I need you to talk about that charter thing, but one more
Okay.
thing, one thing first.
Okay.
I apologize. One thing that I do want to mention, and that's a congratulations to our own Kathleen Amaral on her degree from UNH. So
Nice.
congratulations,
Nice.
well deserved.
Congratulations, Kathleen.
Got all this free time now.
Yeah.
There you go. Chris.
You'll be on more committees.
One quick question, actually, maybe a little longer. Do we have anything planned or on the books or in the works? When would our next joint meeting with the select board be? I bring that up because I'm going on 10 years now on the committee, and it seems like year after year after year, the problem is always coming back to health insurance. The health insurance split in this town is a problem. And that's one thing that I will say is that I will implore the Select Board of Dartmouth to let's have a conversation about the health insurance. Because it's 10 years, it's wearing on all of us, and it really is, in my opinion, we should certainly be looking at options. And I know I've had the opportunity probably 6 or 7 years ago, or right when Mr. McGinnis came on board. I think I met with both Dr.
did.
Gifford, Mr.
Yep.
Kiley, Sean, and it might.
And me, it was over in Bush Street.
That's right, it was over.
Yep.
That's right, you were there. So it's just frustrating that year after year this comes up. So I think that, I'd love to see a little more engagement.
And just to answer your question, Mr. Oliver, we'll have an update on that in executive session.
Thank you.
Dr. Jenkins.
Well, I also want to note that, for years, you've been here longer than I have, but in the almost equally lengthy tenure, we have always waited for the select board to invite us, but there's no reason why we cannot convene a joint meeting. I think we find when the select board sets the agenda, that the agenda is, I'll be charitable and say 60% not relevant to us. Mr. Nunes might put a different number on that. But I don't
99.9.
see any reason why we can't convene a joint meeting and invite the select board and even the finance committee to talk about some of the issues that we want to talk about with them. We're co-equal branches of government, right? They can also, we can extend the invitation to them as well and put the things on the agenda that we want to talk about. So maybe, we're going to have executive session tonight. Maybe we revisit this topic at our next meeting and we pick a date and we pick some topics for the agenda and extend a meeting to those two boards. It might mean that we have to meet an additional time, but I'm okay with that because I think this is important.
I agree.
Yep, I'm good with that. Okay.
John, do you want?
Yep, I was trying to find it, but I can't find it. But go ahead.
So just
Right.
actually, which ties into that conversation, is I'm on the Charter Review Committee. And so as we're going back through, interestingly, this question of collaboration and what our role is vis-a-vis the select board has come up in terms of language. And so I'm just going to read this, and I think I think it's probably best as if I share it with you, because there's the comments about what does it absolutely mean. We're revisiting in our next meeting, which is, I had sent it to John. There's been a lot going on, but I just wanted to make sure that I thought we all needed to weigh in on this if we're talking about revisions before it comes to town meeting. But I'll just read it quickly, but I understand that it's easier to read it and then kind of digest it. But right now the language says that let me see. The town, notwithstanding their election by the voters, for the purpose of coordinating the work of all town agencies, the town officials named in this section, including school committee members and all elected members, shall be subject to the call of the select board or of the town administrator at all reasonable times for consultation, conference, and discussion on any matter relating to their respective offices or multiple member bodies. That's the current language. So I just want to just say, so I think because we're talking about that, and there were, and again, in that board, of course, there are representatives of all the committees. So I think it's just important for us to kind of consider, are we okay with that, continuing that language? Do we think that is representative of what we think of our role? Because my reading of that is that we're subject to the select board. And again, do we see ourselves, is that the case? And again, that's how I've read it, and there was, again, some discussion within the, but I wanted to get your viewpoint since I'm your rep.
Okay. Go ahead,
I
Shannon.
just want to say that's fine. I just want to warn the committee that we need to comply with open meeting law. And so it's fine to circulate that language, but discussion via email or serial discussion
Right.
via email
No,
is
no,
not
I know.
allowable. So you can't circulate it to all of us and all of us individually respond to
Well,
you.
no, I know that. I know
So
that.
we have to, if we want to talk about this,
When-
we have to talk about it in an open
Yeah,
meeting.
no, I got that.
No, we get that, yeah.
When is your next charter meeting?
So we have a meeting on Wednesday, but this is something that is on hold, so we're not necessarily we're kind of cleaning up and going through, various sections, but this is one that we highlighted for future discussion. So there's anyway, I'm sure we will revisit it on Wednesday, but again, we do not have to make a final decision around it, and I can say we're in discussion, and that's fine.
So why don't you forward that to everybody? We all take a look at it, and we can, at some point, have a discussion about it.
next meeting.
Type of deal.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
you.
Much appreciated. Okay. All right. Anything else? That's enough. I got it. Okay. Our next meeting is going to be 2 weeks from tonight, Monday, November 21st, 2022 at 6:30 here in the Media Center. That being said, the Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session for the purposes of collective update on collective bargaining with union personnel and not return to open session.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Amaral, second by Ms. Wade on the motion. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Sorry. John Nunes?
Yes.
Chris Oliver?
Yes.
Shannon Jenkins?
Yes.
Kathleen Amaral? And Mary Wade?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. Enjoy Veterans Day. To our veterans, thank you.
All right.